Good day. My name is Darcell Rahming, and I will be giving you a dialogue reading between Socrates and Meno. The dialogue is taken from the book The History and Philosophy of Education, The Voice of Educational Pioneers. I begin on page 29 with Socrates. The dialogue begins with Socrates. But if the good are not by nature good, are they made good by instruction? No, there appears to be no other alternative so great. On the supposition that virtue is knowledge, there can be no doubt that virtue is taught. I will try and tell you why, Meno. I do not retract the assertion that if virtue is knowledge, it may be taught, but I fear that I have some reason in doubting whether virtue is knowledge. For consider now, I say whether virtue, and not only virtue, but anything that is taught, must have teachers and disciples. Surely. And conversely, may not the art of which neither teacher nor disciples exists be assumed to be incapable of being taught? True. But do you think that there are no teachers of virtue? I have certainly often inquired whether there were any, and taken great pain to find them. I have never succeeded, and many have assisted me in this search, and they were persons whom I thought the most likely to know, and these are the sorts of men from whom you are likely to learn whether there are any teachers of virtue, and who they are. Please, Anytus, help me and your friend Minnow in answering our question. Who are the teachers? If neither If neither the sophists nor the gentlemen are teachers, clearly there can be no other teachers. No. And if there are no teachers, neither are there disciples. Agreed. So we have admitted that a thing cannot be taught, of which there are neither teachers nor disciples. We have. And there are no teachers of virtue to be found anywhere. There are not. And if there are no teachers, neither are there scholars. That, I think, is true. Then virtue cannot be taught. Not if we are right in our view, Socrates. But I cannot believe, Socrates, that there are no good men. And if there are, how did they come into existence? Seeing then that men become good and useful to states, not only because they have knowledge, but because they have the right opinion, and that neither knowledge nor right opinion is given to man by nature or acquired by him, do you imagine either of them to be given by nature? No, not I. Then if they are not given by nature, neither are they good by nature, good. Certainly not. And nature being excluded, then come the question whether virtue is acquired by teaching. Yes. And if virtue was wisdom or knowledge, were then as we thought it was taught. Yes. And if it was taught, was it wisdom? Certainly. And if there were teachers, it may be taught. And if there were no teachers, not? True. So, but surely you acknowledge that there were no teachers of virtue. Yes. Then we acknowledge that it was not taught and was not wisdom. Certainly. And yet we admit that it was a good. Yes. And the right guide is useful and good. Certainly. And the only right guides are knowledge and true opinion. These are the guides of men. For things that happen by chance are not under the guidance of men, but the guides of men are true opinion and knowledge. I think so, Socrates. But if virtue is not taught, neither is virtue knowledge. Clearly not. Then of two good and useful things, one which is knowledge, has been set aside and cannot be supposed to be our guide in political life?
I think not.
And therefore not by any wisdom, and not by cause they were wisdom, they were wise. But the Animatus and those others of whom Anytus spoke governed state. This was the reason why they weren't able to make others like themselves, because their virtue was not grounded on knowledge.
That is probably true, Socrates.
But if not by knowledge, the only alternative which remains is that statesmen have guided the state by right opinion, which is in politics what derives is in religion. For diviners, and also prophets say many things truly, but they know not what they say.
So I believe.
To sum up our inquiry, the results seem to be if we are at all right in our view that virtue is neither natural nor acquired, but an instinct given by God to the virtuous, nor is the instinct accompanied by reason, unless there may be supposed to be among statements someone who is capable of educating statements.
This is an excellent Socrates.
Then Meno, the conclusion is that virtue comes to the virtuous by the gift of God. But we shall never know the certain truth until, before asking how virtue is given, we inquire into the actual nature of virtue. I fear that I must go away. But do you, now that you persuaded yourself, persuade our friend Anytus, and do not let him be so aspirated, if you can conceal him. Sorry, and do not let him be so exasperated. If you can consolate him, you will have done good service to the Athenian people.